welcome back to another episode of Bodacious Rant with Burn and Rye. Hope everybody's summer was solid. I know it's been a minute since Burn and I have graced you guys with our presence. You know, our last review was the Weapons one, so if you never got around to seeing that movie, I do feel bad a little bit because it was awesome, depending on who you ask, because a friend of ours did not like it whatsoever, and that was a funny evening. But yeah, so we're back at it, and of course, the movie we're gonna jump back into it is another horror movie, just because, you know, I like going to horror movies. I have to drag Burn with me, but no, he secretly enjoys them. And this one was one I was like very on the fence about, and watching it definitely proved why I was on the fence, and that is The Conjuring Last Rites, which is the fourth and final film of the Conjuring series, featuring the adventure, like the cases of Ed and Lorraine Warren, starring Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. And yeah, because the last one I want to say was The Devil Made Me Do It. That came out in 2020 or 2021. So it's been a minute since we got it. I think since then, the only other movie we got was The Nun 2. And that sounds about right. But anyways, this is a non-spoiler review, so for those of you who do happen to see this, or if you just like seeing us back again, feel free to give us a like on the, just show your support, ring the bell for notifications, and of course subscribe, which we do appreciate you all doing that. So yeah, so this one takes place in the 80s, which is, I guess, one of, if not their final case together. And yeah, it stars like another troubled family being tormented by inhuman spirits, and Ed and Lorraine are reluctant to do this for various reasons, which I don't want to give into unless you follow the history behind them. But for the rest of us, it's spoiler material, so I'm not going to get into it. This one was also not directed by James Wan like he did the first two films. I think this is the same director who did the last one as well. I could be wrong on that one.
Yeah, Michael Shaves, who did the last one and now this one.
I believe he also did Curse of La Llorona, because that one wasn't great. It wasn't horrible. I had high hopes for that one, out of disappointment. So in all honesty, this guy has been 3 for 3 for disappointments to me, with Curse La Llorona, The Devil Made Me Do It, and The Last Rites. And it's nothing on the performances of the actors or necessarily I didn't really have any issues with the plot. It was more of just the execution, and honestly, the effects definitely had something to do with this film. I mean, because not that, like, given the first two had their pretty fake moments and stuff here and there, but the first one I actually think was actually the best one with effects overall. But yeah, this one was just whatever. As soon as I saw the trailer, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. But Bern, what did you think about this movie, and maybe what were your thoughts going into this one?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty hesitant in going to watch this one just because it feels like, with like a lot of other horror franchises, the more movies we get in the franchise, the more the returns are diminishing. And it feels like for The Conjuring, that's very much the case. And when we take into account, the last movie and the proper, main movies, and then all the different spin-offs that we've gotten, it's just been a lot more things that don't really interest me as someone who has a hard time with horror, a hard time enjoying horror, just because a lot of these movies, in this franchise in particular, sort of just rely on a lot of cheap jump scares, which is unfortunate because the way it started out with the first two movies, I think James Wan did a great job in establishing a lot of the very scary tone and doing really elaborate long setups to the big scares in those movies, and the first two particular just worked so well, and there were movies that I really found myself enjoying as someone who has a hard time with horror. But these last couple movies have really disappointed me in that sense, but where they don't falter from the first two is with the more personal drama, the more character side of the story with Ed and Lorraine Warren. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are fantastic in the roles. They slip right into it in this one. And even though the script itself is pretty bare bones and doesn't really give them all that much to do. Those moments that they do have with each other in the more familial settings and the more personal settings, they do a really great job of it just because they're really strong actors and they really embody these characters. And since they've been doing it for 4 movies now, they're able to slip right into it without any issue. And those were the moments that I found myself enjoying, much like the last movie. I feel like the director Michael Shay's, where he lacks in sort of the building of the terror and the tension behind the scares. He does really well in a lot of the interpersonal moments. So those were the moments that I did find myself enjoying in this movie. And this movie does have a fair amount of them, I will say. Very light on the number of scares. I mean, I guess that's a good thing because the scares aren't all that great in my opinion. But it's the character stuff that really did work for me here, surprisingly enough.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I've never thought about it, but yeah, there's no issues with he really knows how to bring the acting out of his leads. You know, whether it be Corsa Llorona with I forgot her name right now, who played Velma and Hawkeye's wife, and then also Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. He really does know how to get the best out of them, and has some really good character moments, to be honest, and even dialogue has been solid. But where he tries to really do that, yeah, the scares do fall short. Some of them try to go for like cheap jump scares, which it's sometimes they work, but most of the time it's very just like, cool, I kind of saw that coming. And like I said, for me the biggest thing was just the effects with a couple of the some of these scares and stuff like that, because it just looked really bad. Like how Marvel has been bad, that's kind of how what felt for this one. So, with all that being said, because it had some good, heartfelt, sentimental moments, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5, but it's definitely on the lower side of that, almost a 2, just because, the effects and the scares weren't really there. But the characters and the story overall were, very serviceable and pretty solid for the most part. So, I would say it's definitely like a $5 Tuesday kind of movie, or you may want to wait to streaming. I don't think I would pay full ticket for like IMAX or Dolby or anything like that. Definitely for a cheaper day, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. In terms of the horror offerings, this one is very light on that. Like I said, the main draw for me was the two performances by the leads and the couple of newcomers to the cast in Ben Hardy and Mia Tomlinson, who I won't disclose which characters they're playing because I don't think the trailers did. So that was a kind of a little bit of a nice surprise going into and like figuring out who they were. But I thought they did a really good job in being introduced in the very last movie and having some good moments with the two main leads of this franchise. I thought they fit into the roles really well, and I thought they did a pretty good job. But other than that, I 100% agree with you. I think the effects here really did a little bit of a disservice to the movie. Again, the scares weren't all that really well set up, and the movie sort of lacks that big sort of iconic villain where that we had them in the first two movies. In the second one in particular, with that being the nun being a big spin-off in its own right. This movie sort of lacks that sort of memorable monster that they're fighting, so that was a little bit disappointing as well, and I felt that that was also a little bit of a downside of the last movie as well. So yeah, although I feel like this is a really nice end for the characters in terms of their own personal stories. As a end cap to this franchise, it is disappointing to me. So this one is going to be a 2 out of 5 for me. Like you, it's hard to recommend in any of the premium formats, but if you're just looking for something to just fill that horror gap and you've seen everything else that's in the theaters, you can do a lot worse than this, but I think you can do better too. So yeah, it's just one of those that's kind of middling for me.
I mean, the last couple years in general have been great for horror. Given the horror movies this year don't really align with The Conjuring, they're still a lot better. Like Weapons, 28 Years Later, Sinners, and those are just a few of them that have come out this year. So, yeah, like I said, for those of you who did happen to catch it this weekend to kind of end summer, kick off fall, feel free to let us know what you thought about it in the comments. Favorite things you liked about it, maybe things you didn't care for. Love to get your thoughts on it. Yeah, but we're back and we're in the fall season. A lot of shows coming out this season, so keep an eye out for those. But yeah, we're just looking forward to getting our reviews out there for y'all. So as always, stay bodacious and keep on ranting for us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.